There are two kinds of people in this world. The people who fail to do what they know they should, and those who keep doing things they know they shouldn't. Guess what? You're both. Hi, I'm your host, life and business coach, Marcy Barker, aka your loving kick in the pants. In this podcast, I'll teach you the 6 steps of my accountability code that will help you wake up with clarity and show up with aligned action steps that make follow through easy and peaceful. All right, let's jump in.
Hello, my beautiful people. Today, we're going to talk about dreaming big and how being more ambitious actually leads to better outcomes. And this podcast episode was triggered or prompted by somebody asking what I thought was a very stupid question. And we're going to dive into it. And forgive me for being judgmental. But you guys, that judgmental thought is what is bringing you all of this value. And again, I hope you're listening to this podcast because you want that kick in the pants. And this is the loving way I'm going to do that. So I am signed up for this online event to plan out my whole year of 2024. And I've been looking forward to this for a long time because I'm finally at a point in the year where I have time to sit and relax. I don't have any major events on my schedule. And it's like my eat, pray, love couple of weeks. So I'm getting ready for this planning event and there was like homework to do. And the leader of this group was like, okay, we're going to have a planning session, a homework session. I'm not going to teach anything, but we're going to meet on Zoom and you guys, it's just dedicated time to get your homework done. And one of the questions in the workbook said, if money wasn't an issue, I would blah, blah, blah. And in the comments of the Zoom, somebody said, I'm wondering what is the purpose of asking if money wasn't an issue, I would, because it sounds a lot like dreaming unrealistically. And I was like, okay, lady, this is the entire reason. The entire reason to dream big is because it's unrealistic. Like that is the whole entire purpose of asking the question if money wasn't an issue. Because that right there, her asking that question showed that she has a lot of limiting beliefs or things that she was taught as a child of like, hey, that's not possible. Just go get a job. You need benefits. It's never going to work out. It's going to be too hard, blah, blah, blah. And for a second, I was like, I guess really put off by that because I guess it really interrupted my ability to do my homework. I was paying attention to the comments and I went back to my workbook to see what I put on this question. And my answer was, if money wasn't an issue, I would spend all day developing my daughter's abilities and having fun with them. And I was like, that's really cool, but also, there's a problem with my thinking here because why would I have to have all the money in the world to do that? To spend all day with my daughters and have fun with them. I'm like, I can literally do that right now. So when I went back to look at my workbook, I was like, I thought I would have had a whole list of answers, but obviously I was clearly distracted by this question. So I have to go back and answer that question again. If money wasn't an issue, I would, blah, blah, blah. So today on this podcast, I want to talk about dreaming big. And I want you to see that there is a really awesome purpose for getting out of your realistic head right now and saying, what is possible? And I remember doing this about a year ago and a little bit longer. I was at my business meeting and somebody said, okay, in a couple weeks, we're going to have a come as you'll be meeting instead of come as you are. It'll be come as you'll be. So I was driving to the meeting and I was like, what am I going to do? And I had just launched my 3rd program of the accountability code. And I remember I was very excited because I had done my very first launch with my new book was like $15,000. And I was like, okay, that's not bad. It's not amazing, but that's pretty cool to have in one specific launch. And then, I told myself that I was going to triple that launch. So I was going to make at least $45,000 in my next launch. And I did it. I did it again. And I was like, that's kind of trippy. That's kind of trippy that I did that. So when I heard about this come as you'll be, I was like, what can I do? What can I do to go bigger? And I remember sitting in my car, and this video is actually on Facebook somewhere, where I was driving to that meeting and I still was unsure about what I was going to do to, everybody meets at the meeting. They're like, well, what did you do? What did you do? And so I was like, what am I going to say that I did? And in the car, I said I was going to have a $75,000 launch. And it was scary for me to say, like coming out of my mouth, I was like, okay, this is a big deal. And to post that video was a little bit scary because I was like, people are going to watch this. And I did not know how it was going to happen at all. But I knew that if I went from side hustle business to a $15,000 launch to a $45,000 launch, I'm sure that it will happen somehow. Like I'll figure it out. And you guys, I actually did it. I did have a launch when I launched my mastermind that I brought in over $75,000 worth of income. And even saying that feels a little uncomfortable because I know that people will judge, people will say things, or people won't believe it, or they're like, hey, I helped you do that. I'm one of your clients, whatever. Dreaming big and being ambitious, that is what actually brings you the results. But if I never set that goal ever, I would have never put together the plan. I wouldn't have ever had the idea. I wouldn't have the offer. I wouldn't have the structure. I wouldn't have had anything to make that happen. So as I'm going through this next phase of my life and planning, I'm like, what is that big, scary, ambitious thing that I'm going to say? Because for me, especially as an accountability person, I'm like, now there's some truth to that outcome. And dreaming big, I want you to know, is extremely personal. Like just because I said these numbers of 15, 45, 75, that doesn't mean that has to be your plan at all. In fact, it shouldn't be. Because just like my answer of spend all days developing my daughter's abilities and having fun with them, I'm sure none of you put that same answer if you were going to answer that question. So everything is going to be totally different. Okay, so let's dive into how to be a little bit more ambitious, okay? Because dreaming big is the way you step into a new level of being, a new way of being, where you're like that. If I had a $15,000 launch again, I'd be like, that sucked. And it's not that $15,000 can't do a lot for a family. It's that I know I'm capable of more. I know that I've done more. I know that I'm able to do more. So the challenges that people face that you might even be experiencing right now about dreaming big is that there are limiting beliefs on you right now that are holding you back. Just like the lady who asked the question, she clearly was like, why are you asking us to think unrealistically? So I want you to ask yourself, like, what are some of those limiting beliefs? Why in the world would I never say something that would scare me so big? Or why does speaking into the universe unrealistic things feel scary or wrong? So ask yourself that. Because even me saying that, I'm like, I need to ask myself that too. Why was it scary to say $75,000? Why was it scary to post the video? Why was it scary to admit that that's what actually happened? These are all questions we got to figure out as we learn to be a little bit more ambitious each day. Another thing that holds us back is the fear of failure. And actually, I will tell you this too, now that it just popped up. When I had that $75,000 launch, I was like, if I'm going bigger, I'm going to make, I think the number I put out, I was like, okay, 15 to 45, that's tripled. I was like, if I did a $75,000 launch, triple that. I told my accountant, I plan on making $210,000 this year in 2023. That was my goal. You guys, have I made $210,000 this year? No, I have not. And you want to know the crazy part is that when I said that last year, my husband and I, we were both self-employed, making more income. We got kicked off a good government subsidy for health insurance for being self-employed. We were paying a very good rate for health insurance. And because we made more money, we couldn't get that health insurance anymore. So I was like, okay, come January, like we're canceling our health insurance because we're not going to pay $1,000 to $1,500 a month for health insurance that my family doesn't even use. We're very healthy people, knock on wood. We just need something for catastrophes. So I canceled my health insurance thinking I was going to make bank this year. And you guys, that's just not what happened. It's not what happened. And I can talk about this more in the future when more things have come to pass. There's a lot of things that happened in my life this year that it's not an excuse. It's just, this is what happened. So I went a whole long time without health insurance for my family because I believed I was going to make a lot of money. And that's just what needed to happen. So the fear of failure, you guys, I'm telling you right now, I failed to hit the number that I said I was going to, even to the point where I canceled my family's health insurance because I was so sure that that's what was going to happen, and it did not happen. And I'm saying this with a smile on my face because I'm so grateful that, number one, my family's been healthy and fine, like that we were just fine. I mean, even the tumbling gym we went to, they were like, oh, you don't have health insurance, you can't come here anymore. And I had to cancel. I had to withdraw all of my girls out of tumbling and gymnastics because they didn't have health insurance. That was a blow. That made me feel real bad as a parent. Okay, now before this turns into therapy. Anyway, the fear of failure can stop you from dreaming big. And even me just recollecting what happened, I don't want to let that hold me back. I'm not going to set easy goals, but it makes me think twice. Am I going to tell myself I'm going to make $210,000 next year? I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that on my own.
Hey listeners, the message of waking up and showing up is yours for the taking. In fact, it's free. I've recorded my entire audiobook and I'd love for you to consume it between episodes. Head to marcybarker.com to get instant access to the accountability code Wake Up and Show Up. All right, let's jump back in.
Another challenge that people encounter when setting goals is a lack of support and ongoing accountability. And this one is a really big one. I think that you have to definitely evaluate where you are in your life of who you're surrounding yourself with. And if you're like, if I couldn't tell the people around me my goal because they don't support me, that is a very good indication you need additional people in your life. I'm not saying you got to cut those people out of your life because maybe it's your spouse. Maybe it's your spouse who's like, no, just go get a job. Please stop with this business stuff. Get more people in your life who understand you and can support you. And if you don't have any people in your life, guess what? I'm right here. I'm right here for you. And I have an entire community of over 3,000 women that will actively help you grow as long as you are showing up to do that. The problem, I want you to recognize there can be things that you're experiencing right now that have caused you to not dream big, that you're like, oh, no wonder I'm not ambitious, because you just reminded me of all the reasons why I'm not. Well, I want to talk about the importance of stepping into that ability to be ambitious, because if you don't, what's going to happen? You're probably never, ever going to set goals. It's going to be easier for you to just be like, this is my life and I'm just going to deal with it. This is just how it's happening. Also, if you are refusing to dream big, then you are letting your limiting beliefs win. You are allowing yourself to stay where you are in a state of unhappiness. Just like I said, if I was going to have a $15,000 launch, that's not horrible, but yeah, it is horrible because I've experienced more. I know that I'm capable of more. And if you are not dreaming, you're not being ambitious, well, welcome to the bottom of your comfort zone. And it's almost like the bottom of your comfort zone is also like, you're going to dwell there and you're going to be depressed. And I don't mean that clinically depressed. I mean that every single day you're not going to have something that gets you excited. And that's a sad way to live your life. That's even sad that I'm saying that. If that's resonating with you, I want you to know, I'm not saying this to anybody personally. I'm saying I've been there before and it's not fun. It's not fun to try and match somebody else's level of functioning or behavior because it feels like you are being pulled down. Please do not ignore the feelings you have to dream big and even just a little bit bigger. Like even if I went from, okay, maybe here's what I should have done. You guys, and I've probably shared this in the podcast before. It's vulnerable for me to say this, but last year I finished out the year at 115,000. So maybe my goal for this year shouldn't have been 210. Maybe it should have been like 125. I don't know. But either way, it needs to be something that is scaring me a little bit because that's going to lead to a better outcome. It would be pointless for me to be like, well, let me just finish the year at 40,000 because that's what I did for the past 4 years before I learned how to scale, So I want you to just understand what it feels like to be at the bottom and just commit that you are not going to stay there. And you listening to this podcast on accountability, you don't want to be there. You surrounding yourself with my words alone is enough proof that you're like, nah, I'm not going to stay here. I don't want to be here. You have to decide for yourself what that looks like if you're going to dream a little bit big or if you're not going to dream at all. So next, I want to share a couple of tips that will help you dream just a little bit bigger. The first one is you have to recognize what that limiting belief is and then decide that it doesn't apply anymore. So let's say, your husband's like, can you stop trying to run a business, please? Spend more time with your family. Like, you're trying to start a business because you want to spend more time with the family, but you're not even spending time with the family. You're doing coaching calls all the time. It's like, is that true? And how can I tweak that just a little bit? It might just be like setting boundaries, where you being ambitious about your boundaries is going to be a big step. But in the grand scheme of things, it's something that really made a difference in a very small way. The next thing that I would recommend is having a growth mindset. Just like I said, you listening to the podcast is a great first step. You have to surround yourself with resources that bring out the possibilities, that are showing right now what dreaming big can actually do. And you guys, there is no shortage of motivation and inspiration on the internet. Start unfollowing the people and the sources that make you feel small. The third tip is have people who care about you. Okay. This is where I talked about having a support, a community, or accountability. If you're going to invest in anything, that should be it, because you matter. It will do so much for your business and for your health to have somebody in your corner who understands you and who is not going to give up on you. The next thing is recognize that failure is just a stepping stone in success. So in my story, it's I freaking canceled my family's health insurance. I am so glad nothing happened during that time. We do have health insurance again, luckily, but I am so glad that nothing happened to my family during that time. And I have to recognize that even though my plan didn't work out, I'm learning. I'm learning from that, and I am doing more to not ever have that happen again. Also, you guys, I am married. I do have another parent in the home who is responsible for that. So it's not just on me. This whole situation is just an experience to say, hey, we got to get our crap together in a better way, different way, backup way, whatever. Which I did, you guys, just so you know, I do have another program that helps with medical expenses in case something crappy happens. I'm not just living life on the edge. I'm trying not to anyway. The last tip is you have to track your progress. You have to know what you're at, because you guys, the only reason I could easily recollect I had $15,000 launch and a $45,000 launch and $75,000. You guys, I know that because I tracked it. I can literally pull up the Excel spreadsheets and show which clients that was, how much they paid, and what the program was that they did. And you guys, guess what? I did not do that with my $210,000 goal. And that right there is I sabotaged myself by not tracking it accurately. That's hard for me to say, you guys, but I didn't track it. And the year is not over. What I probably should do is go through my year and see where I'm at, and then see what I can do to fill in the gap. Wouldn't that be crazy? Wouldn't that be actually crazy if I did that and then found a way to make up the rest? That would be insane. Stay tuned. I'm not going to promise anything yet. But, that kind of gives me the chills. Okay, last thing, you guys, is we could talk about this all day long. And I know that parts of this podcast might have been a little bit depressing just because, just like that lady in the beginning, she probably felt the same feeling of why is she asking me to dream bigger? Why is she even asking the question, if money wasn't a thing? She's, money's always going to be a thing. I want you to recognize that going through this very real process of evaluating yourself and your abilities to dream big, it's going to help you move forward. And the accountability code, you guys, when I wrote my book, somebody asked me, oh, so you wrote a book on accountability. That means you have to always be on your game, right? And I was like, yeah, but so do you. Accountability is never going away. And even if you enjoy being accountable, it doesn't mean it's always easy. And remember, in the accountability code, there is that step of humility. There is that step of implementing where it's sometimes we are going to fall short. That's just how life is. But it doesn't mean that we can't take 100% ownership of our action within the process and say, okay, what can I do to make this a little bit better? So a few things I would love for you to do as you listen to this podcast or as we wrap up is, number one, again, take a deep breath. Because you are amazing. You have the ability to make your life into what you want it to be. Just like my answer, I would spend all day developing my daughter's abilities and having fun with them. It's like, I can do that right now. I can do that in small ways. I can do that in medium ways. And I for sure can do that in big ways. So I want you to recognize, like, you have the ability to get what you want. You have the ability to dream a little bit bigger than you are. And you have support. At the very minimum, it's me listening. You're listening to this podcast, and I am reachable, you guys. I promise you, if you book a call with me, we will talk. And as it comes to being more ambitious, give yourself credit. Give yourself credit for where you are right now. So as you work on dreaming a little bit bigger, I want you to recognize, like, things will work together in your favor. That's just the way the world works, is when you put something out there and you let people know and you work towards it, people notice and they want to help you and people want to stick with you. People are attracted to you when you do things like that. Oh, you guys, do not be afraid to dream a little bit bigger. And do not be afraid to get help to make those things happen. Do not be afraid to say those things out loud. Do not be afraid to fail while you're learning. Don't be afraid to just keep going as best as you can. I hope with everything in me that you don't ever discount your ability to take 100% ownership of where you are right now and to turn it into something better. And I love you. And I hope that you can feel that as you work on becoming more accountable within your own life and your own business. All right, friends, I believe we just finally hit 1 year of podcasting, and I realized that I have never really asked for you guys to rate or review my podcast, and I'm going to ask for that now. So if you have listened to one episode or all 50 something episodes that we're on, I would love more than anything for you to rate my podcast and review it so that more people can hear the message of being accountable. So that's all. Have a fantastic day and see you next week.
Hey friends, I want to thank you for listening to this episode of Your Loving Kick in the Pants. If you got any value out of this episode, I would love for you to drop me a review or share with a friend what you learned. All right, I'll see you next Wednesday for Your Loving Kick in the Pants.